Om Asato Ma Sadgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om. Lead me from the unreal to the real. Lead me from darkness to light. Lead me from death to immortality. Om. Peace, peace, peace. Today's topic is Strike off thy fetters. Strike off thy fetters, bonds that bind thee down, of shining gold or darker baser ore, love, hate, good, bad, and all the dual throng. No, slave is slave, caressed or whipped, not free. For fetters though of gold are not less strong to bind. Then off with them, sannyasin bold, say Om Tat Sat Om. This is a clarion call of Swami Vivekananda issued during his stay in Thousand Island Parks. He had been working hard, giving lectures and talks after the Parliament of Religions. And by summer of 1895, he very direly needed a rest. Then Mr. Leggett invited him to his camp, and from there he was invited by one of his New York students, Miss Dutcher, to her summer cottage in Thousand Island Parks on the St. Lawrence River, some 300 miles from New York. And the people were all going away because of the summer to the mountains or the seashore. So Swamiji also decided to have a break, and he accepted the invitation of Miss Dutcher. And hearing that Miss Dutcher has invited him, some of his students wanted to go along because they didn't want the classes to be discontinued. So Swamiji said, all right, those who are ready to travel all this distance, I'm ready to teach them. So that's how this stay of 7 weeks in Thousand Island Park started. And it was a period of intense teaching and training. And Swamiji himself said that he was at his best in Thousand Island Parks. One afternoon, Swamiji had been talking about the glory of renunciation and of the joy and freedom of those who have given up the world, had taken to the life of renunciation of the ochre robe. He suddenly left the group, went to his room, and came back after a short time with the poem Song of Sannyasin. And the verse that we quoted is from that Song of Sannyasin. And it is said that Swamiji afterwards sent the poem to Brahmavad in the new magazine, which was started from Madras by his disciples and followers, led by Alasinga Perumal, saying that this is my first contribution to your magazine. But what happened to the original that Swamiji wrote? In 1948, this cottage of Miss Dutcher, which has in the meantime come under the Ramakrishna Mission, Vedanta Center in New York, they were having renovation, and all the old things the workers were throwing into the dustbin. And one of them saw this on the pieces of paper on which Swamiji has written this and handed over to the Swami in charge, Swami Nikhilananda. And that's how we got the original writings of Swamiji on the paper that we have. Swamiji had written this Song of Sannyasin. And he himself quoted in his talks from this poem, from the poem, because in the next it's written that in the next day, in the morning class, he said, "We only dreamed is bondage. Wake up and let go. Take refuge in God. Only so can we cross this desert of Maya." And then he quoted from the Song of Sannyasin, "Let go thy hold, Sannyasin bold. Say Om Tat Sat Om." And one of his students wrote, "Asad, Asad, the free," he cried, pacing up and down like a caged lion. Yes, like the lion in the cage who found the bars not of iron but of bamboo. That was the main theme of his teaching in Thousand Island Parks. Stand on the self, be free. Now, when we say be free, we wonder why should somebody ask us to be free? We are all free. In the democratic countries, the citizens are free. Generally, we have got all the freedom. We have got social and political freedom, freedom of speech, freedom of religion, that is freedom to worship, freedom of movement, freedom of association, or we should say rather, till this coronavirus lockdown came, we had the freedom. Now we have all restrictions are there, but till then, we had the freedom to do whatever we want, as long as we didn't harm anybody else. So why did Swamiji made this idea of freedom as the main theme of his teaching? Because all this referred to external freedom. All this refer to freedom in the external world, in the society, or rather we should say freedom of the senses. With all this external freedom, we find that we are not really happy. There is dissatisfaction, a sense of lacking. We may be trying to attain a goal, we are working towards a goal, and as we progress, before we attain the goal, or maybe, or even soon after we reach the goal, we feel that that's not what we wanted actually, or we didn't want it anymore. And then it's again the sense of dissatisfaction is there, a sense of lacking is there. And we realize, oh, we want something else. Not this, so this is not what I wanted, I want something else. This goes on and on. Whatever we try, as soon after we get, or before we reach that goal, we find that this is not what we want something else. Are we really free? We are bound by the chains of our emotions, anguish, anger, hatred, our beliefs, our prejudices. In short, by nature. Nature orders us around. Nature asks us to laugh, we laugh. Nature asks us to weep, we weep. Nature tells us it is cold, we wrap up in warm clothes. Or like today, nature says it's a fine day, we all go to the beach to enjoy. So we are slaves in the hands of nature. That's why Sri Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita says, Avasham Prakriter Vashat. Helpless under the sway of nature. And we boast that we are free. We are free citizens. But of course, we rebel. We rebel against this slavery of the nature. And that is the distinguishing character of human beings. Animals just follow whatever the nature says. They are under the control of nature. But human beings, we challenge and try to break free from this bondage. We refuse to be puppets in the hands of nature. And this refusing to be puppets in the hand of nature, trying to challenge the control of the nature, is the beginning of spiritual development and higher evolution. So Swamiji says, the first inkling of life on its higher level is in seeing this struggle within us to break the bonds of nature and to be free. Freedom, 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 oh freedom is the song of the soul. Bondage, alas, to be bound by nature seems its fate, Swamiji says. All that external freedom, that freedom that we have, is absolutely essential for the growth of the individual and society. Only when there is freedom, there will be growth. So Swamiji always used to say, in India, there's complete freedom on the field of religious practices, but society was completely under control. So socially, India did not develop, stagnated. Whereas on the path of religion, it evolved and reached a very high stage. In the West, the religious field, there was complete control, no freedom at all. On the social field, society had freedom. So society evolved, but on the religious side, they stagnated. So this freedom, that what we usually say, the external freedom, is necessary, is absolutely necessary for the growth of the individual and society. But that's not enough. This freedom of the senses, both animals and humans have got. But we are different from animals. We rebel against nature, and so we try to gain freedom from the senses. And so Swami Turiyananda says, it is in the human body that the gates of freedom open. Only human being can gain that freedom. So every man should be on his guard to make good use of his life. Once walking along the streets of New York with an American monk or a Western monk who was at that time a novice by name Swami Gurudas. Later he became Swami Atulananda. Swami Turiyananda and Gurudas were walking along the street, and suddenly Swami Turiyananda shouted, be a lion, break the cage and be free. And Gurudas in his reminiscences right, people are turning around and looking, the strange shouting, be a lion, break the cage and be free. In Sanskrit there is a saying, Sarvam Paravasham Dukkham, Sarvam Atmavasham Sukham. Sarvam Paravasham Dukkham. Everything, all dependence, depending upon other people, depending upon external factors, everything is misery. Sarvam Atmavasham Sukham. Happiness is only in independence or self-dependence. Every time we depend upon other people, other factors, other things, external things, we suffer. Sooner or later, we come to suffer. But being independent means actually depending on your higher self-dependence. There is no misery at all. We'll be really happy. Even depending upon a teacher, on a spiritual teacher, is not very good. Too much of dependence is not good. So all the great teachers want their disciples to be independent, stand upon their own feet. They never liked leaning too much on them, depending too much on them. Stand on their feet. That's what they wanted. So Sister Christine, one of the disciples of Swamiji, who was there at the Thousand Island Parks, she wrote about Swamiji. He encouraged no spineless dependence upon him in any form, no bid for sympathy. Then quoting Swamiji, she writes, stand upon your own feet. You have the power within you, he thundered. We have the power. Why should we lean on somebody else? The Guru has given you instructions, then do it yourself. That's why Bhagavad Gita says, Uddhared Atmanatmanam. Raise yourself by yourself. Stand on your feet. You have got the power. As we struggle, more and more power will come from within. So what is this freedom that Swamiji is talking about so much? freedom from the chain that binds up. The chain made up of our desires, our emotions, our preconceived notions, inherent tendencies, attachment, aversion. Now, if we trace the root cause of all this, we find that they all arise from one cause: egoism, the feeling of I and mine. And egoism comes from ignorance of our true nature, real nature. The Upanishad says, Tattvamasi, you are that. Your real nature is that supreme reality. The ever pure, ever conscious, ever free, ever blissful Atman is our real nature. We are not conscious of that. We are ignorant of that. And that is the cause for all this bondage. We always strive to be, to exist. We want to live. We want to exist. Because existence is our true nature. We want to know. We try to gain more and more knowledge because knowledge is our true nature. We love because bliss is our real nature. We strive for freedom because freedom is our true nature. Through ignorance, we have forgotten that. Instead of being conscious of our real divine nature, we identify ourselves with the body-mind complex and consider ourselves the limited being, a slave to nature, a slave to our emotions, desires. So all we need to do is to remember our real nature. As Swamiji said earlier, wake up and let go. That's all. Now we are as though in a dream. Sleep. Wake up and let go. Remember our real nature. Discover the fact that we are the Atman, or rather say dehypnotize. At present we have been hypnotized to believe that we are this limited human being. So all we have to do is just dehypnotize ourselves. And the Upanishads say again and again, there is no other way. Na anya pantha vidyade ayanaya. There is no other way. This is the only way. To be free, you have to realize your true nature. This ignorance covers the reality or our real nature just like a cloud covers the sun. In Advaita Vedanta, this cosmic ignorance is called Maya. Maya not only covers the reality, it projects an appearance. The classic example they give is that of the rope and the snake. In dim light, the rope looks like a snake. So, rope is the reality. The snake covers the rope. The ignorance covers the rope and projects an image of the snake. Maya is like that. Covers the reality of Atman or the universal, in the cosmic scale, the Brahman, and projects the universe. And when this ignorance is removed, it's destroyed by realizing our real nature. Then we don't see this difference. That's freedom. It's nothing more. It's not freedom is to be obtained from somewhere else. We just realize our real nature. And this idea that we are already free, just you have to recognize, is not just the teaching of Vedantic teachers. The Sufi teacher Vilayat Khan says, do you think you are not free? You are free, but you do not know that you are free. And it is your not knowing that you are free that is your limitation and your imprisonment. Realize your freedom and you are free. You just have to realize that you are free. Now, how do you get this freedom? By removing this identification with the ego by getting rid of the lower self. Once somebody asked Sri Ramakrishna, how do I realize God? How do I realize this Atman? And then in reply, Sri Ramakrishna said, again, he put in a form of question, he asked, when shall I be free? When I dies. I within inverted commas, the small I. When that dies, I'll be free. I'll be free when I dies. The small ego, the little ego dies. What Sri Ramakrishna used to say, the unripe ego. The unripe ego dies and the ripe ego remains. Ripe ego means I am the Atman. Or if you're following the path of devotion, I'm a child of God, I'm a servant of God. That's ripe ego. And we have to do it ourselves. Nobody can do it for us. In the Gita, Shri Krishna says again and again, you have to raise yourself by yourself. Uddharad atmanatmanam. Now the ego has taken its seat in our heart, the seat which should have been occupied by Atman. The ego has taken. Now you have to get rid of the ego from that seat, dethrone the ego, and realize that Atman is there. And for that, the heart must be purified. So Vivekananda says, therefore, the seeker after liberation must carefully purify the mind. When this is purified, liberation is as easy of access as a fruit on the palm of one's hand. So it's not such a big deal. Just to purify your heart, then you're free. So thus we see it is in the liberation and bondage, happiness and misery are all in the mind. So there is great need to train our mind. Mind creates attachment to objects and people and make us bound like a tethered animal. Again, it's the same mind which creates the sense of freedom by creating dispassion to sense objects. So that's why training the mind is very important. The mind is susceptible to suggestions. We all know how powerful advertisement can be, or political and religious propaganda, and how much they influence our thinking. In the same way, we can give suggestions to our mind to purify our mind. Swami Brahmananda says, if through discrimination you can impress upon your mind the joy and fullness of life in the spirit and the folly of worldly attachment, then your mind will devote itself more and more to God. So we have to tell the mind again and again, this attachment to worldly things only causes suffering, misery. Turn yourself to God. Think about your Atman. You realize that you are Atman. Repeat this again and again to the mind, and slowly, slowly, the mind will take up that color. And again, the scriptures say that it is only through God's grace that we get three things: a human birth, the grace of a holy person, and the longing for liberation or freedom. And again, we have all got human body. That's why, as we said earlier, only human beings can try for freedom. We all got human body. Human birth is already got. And by God's grace, many people gain the blessing of a holy person. But if our mind is not there, if there is no desire for freedom, then all these are in vain, useless. Actually, Shankaracharya in the Vivekananda says, having obtained a human body, having even gained a blessing of a holy person, if you don't strive for freedom, you are committing suicide, spiritual suicide, because you are wasting your life, wasting a precious human life. So we have to tell the mind again and again, this attachment to transitory things will only give us more and more misery and cause more and more bondage. So if you want to be free, you have to turn your attention away. Milarepa, the great figure in Tibetan Buddhism, says, I know that to attain freedom, my mind must meditate with great intensity on the impermanence and death, on the consequences of different actions, and on the pain of constant flux. My mind must meditate with great intensity on the impermanence and death. So you are telling your mind again and again the impermanence and death, the constant flux, and consequences of actions. All this is going to cause more and more bondage. You tell your mind again and again. He continues, the mind must develop a yearning for freedom and a commitment to observe the highest moral precepts. Only then the mind will learn to turn away from the worldly things and to the Atman. The problem is, for most people, that's not important. Most people don't feel the need for this yearning for freedom. We are thrown hands and feet bound as if into the world. And if that, by God's grace, we get a teacher, spiritual teacher, guru, and they give us instruction. But we say we are fine. How are you? We are fine. We ask any person, we are fine. And we are in the midst, we are drowning. Still we say we are fine. Sri Ramakrishna, talking about different type of people, he says, he gives a parable. The fishermen throw the net in the catch fish. And a lot of fish is caught in the net. But there are a few fish who are never caught in the net. And among those who are caught in the net, some of them escape. A few, very few escape. Quite a few struggle to get out of the net. But the majority of the fish, they drag the net and with the net go down into the deep in the mud and hide, bury their head in the mud along with the net and think that they are safe. We are safe. We are right in the mud. We are at the bottom of the lake. We are safe. They don't realize that the fishermen will drag the net along with them and they will be killed. Then he says, there are few, like the few fish who are never caught, there are a few people who are never caught in the net of Maya, illusion. They are the ever free. Then there are a few who escape from the net. They are the perfected beings or the free souls. They gain freedom. That there are very few. Then quite a few are striving. They are like the fish who try to escape, but they are not able to. But they just strive. But majority, they think we are fine. We are happy with our life. So first of all, we have to develop this dissatisfaction with our present life, present state of life, present life. Only then the yearning for freedom comes. And Vedanta gives us 4 methods to gain this freedom once you have this yearning. The 4 paths, that of karma, bhakti, raja, and jnana. In karma yoga, we are asked to perform unattached action. Whatever you do, offer all the results to God. As Krishna says, the Gita, you have right only to the action, not to the results. You offer everything to God. In bhakti, in the path of bhakti, bhakti is not just doing some worship or just a little bit of prayer. That's not really bhakti. Bhakti is intense desire, intense love for God. And we end up seeing God in everything. In non-attachment is easier in the path of bhakti because we don't have to do anything forcibly. The more we love God, the more the less will be our attachment to the world. And Sri Ramakrishna says, as you move more to the east, you will be moving further away from the west. You don't have to forcibly do anything. You just go towards God, the world will move away from you. And Raja Yoga, in the path of meditation, is concentration and meditation, control of the mind. Actually, this form part of all the other three paths also. In all the other three paths, path of karma, bhakti, and jnana yoga, the meditation is needed. And the fourth one, the jnana yoga, path of discrimination and dispassion, they are absolutely essential, path of knowledge. So it's very difficult. Compared to other paths, this is much more difficult than the other three. Only very few people with very strong willpower will be able to follow the path of knowledge. This is path of negation, not this, not this. We see everything around us and we see, no, this is all unreal. Self alone, Atman alone, Brahman alone is real. It's very difficult. So Sri Ramakrishna says, as long as you have got the body consciousness, as long as there is desire, it's not possible to follow the path of knowledge. It's very difficult, completely free from attachment and desires. And we realize in this, our oneness, that supreme reality. Ourself is one with the Supreme Self. Aham Brahmasmi. And there, if you follow that path, again, you get the freedom. As Swamiji says, freedom is the soul's nature, the Atman's nature, its birthright. Now, if you look at all these paths, all the four paths, you find something common, a common thread running through all of them, and that is non-attachment. Whatever path you follow, whether you are following the path of action, devotion, or meditation or knowledge, non-attachment is absolutely necessary. Is there. So Swamiji says in the Song of Sannyasin, where seekest thou that freedom, friend? This world nor that can give. In books and temples vain thy search. Thine only is the hand that holds the rope that drags thee on. Then cease lament, let go thy hold. Be not attached. Be unattached. That's all is needed. Let go thy hold. We are holding on to the world. Then how can we be free? Let go thy hold. Just let it go. Be unattached. When we say let go, it's not that we are asked to go away to the mountain caves or forest. No. We don't find freedom anywhere. Freedom is there only when we let go, when we be free from attachment. That's why here Swamiji says, where are you seeking this freedom? In books and temples. It's not there. You read all the books, study all the scriptures, you go to all the temples and pray, you won't find freedom until you let go of the world, until you give up your attachment. And all the great teachers are very eager to show us the path and to see that we attain that freedom. Once, Sri Ramakrishna said to one of his young disciples, Niranjan, on his second visit to Sri Ramakrishna, as he was coming, as he entered Sri Ramakrishna's room, Sri Ramakrishna rushed up to him and holding his hand said, Niranjan, my child, when will you realize God? The days are passing. I'm really concerned as to when you will realize God. Niranjan got surprised. Why is he so worried that I haven't realized God? That's the nature of the great teachers. They want us to be free. They are so eager to see that we attain freedom. Another instance we can see in the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. Sri Ramakrishna was taken on a boat trip on the Ganga by Keshav Chandra Sen. And as he entered the boat, the steamer, he went into Samadhi. So with great difficulty, they guided his steps and took him to the cabin and made him sit there. After some time, slowly, Sri Ramakrishna came down to normal consciousness, and coming down from Samadhi, he looked around and in a whisper was telling Divine Mother, Mother, why have you brought me here? They are hedged around, not free. Can I free them? It seems, seeing the helplessness of the people seated around, they are only representatives of the rest of the people, the population. It seems Sri Ramakrishna felt pity, compassion for these people's bondage and pleading with Divine Mother, had to help them. Look at Buddha. The people suffering, they have made Buddha seek a path to get rid of the suffering. That's how he went to seek how to be free, how to gain freedom from this suffering. And about Swamiji, Sister Christine again writes about her stay in the Thousand Island Paths. He would rush up to one of us with blazing eyes and finger pointing and would exclaim, remember, God is the only reality. Somehow or other, trying to make them understand that God is the only reality. And this freedom is not a postmortem freedom. After you die and then you go to heaven and be free. It's not like that. That freedom is here in this world while you are alive. And now, that is why Sri Krishna in the Gita says, Ihaiva tairjita sargo esham same sthidam manaha. Even here, in this embodied state, the cycle of birth and death has been overcome by those who have this vision of same-sightedness, and that is, they attain the free and Brahman. And again, when we say, oh, you're trying to progress and go on the path of spiritual life, you want to be free, then some people will think, oh, that's very selfish. You want to go all by yourself. But it is, as people think, it is not a selfish ideal. There is no selfishness at all. Nobody can be, there is no question of enjoying freedom alone. One person becomes free, that person will be helping thousands of others towards freedom. As Sri Ramakrishna says, these people who are really free, enlightened souls, they are like ocean liners, which can carry thousands of people across. And one person becoming free, they help others. That's why there's a prayer in the Sanskrit which says, Durjana Sajjano Bhuyat. May the wicked become pure, holy. Sajjana Shanti Mapniyat. May the good person attain peace. Shando muchyeda bandhepyo. May the pure be free from bondage. Muktasyanyan vimochet. May the freed make others free. If you are free, then you can give freedom to others. If you are in bondage, how can you free others? I'll just end with a story. Once, a Pandit, a scholar, was expounding the Bhagavata to the scriptures to the king. And after listening for quite a few days, the king said, "Oh, Pandit, King Parikshit, to whom actually the Bhagavata was explained for the first time, realized God in 7 days. And you have been explaining this to me for months. I haven't attained freedom. I haven't realized God. Why? You can't do it?" Now, and the kings have got this idea, all this saying, if you don't find the answer, I'll cut off your head. The Pandit came back really worried. Then he had a young daughter. She asked, "What's the matter?" And the Pandit said, "This is thing." Then she said, "Tomorrow, next time when you go to the court for teaching, take me. I'll give the answer to the king." So next time he went, he took the daughter. And have you found the answer? Have you got the answer? My daughter will give the answer. So the king asked, what do you say? The girl said, "Well, you are asking me to give you the answer. That means you are a student, I'm the teacher. Now, you cannot sit on the throne and I sit on the stand in front of you and give instruction, teach. No, you have to change position." All right. She went and sat on the throne and king stood in front of her. And she said, "This is the first, and this is the answer. If you realize God, what do you gain by realizing God, or what do you gain by studying the scriptures? God can do anything. You can bring down the king from the throne and put an ordinary person on the throne in a second. God can do anything. Then, but why is it that I don't understand? I don't have the freedom. King Parikshit got freedom in 7 days. I haven't attained anything." Then she said, "Can you ask your soldier to do what I ask you?" The king said, "All right." Then the girl said, bind me to this pillar and bind the king to another pillar." The soldiers and the attendants looked at the king. He said, "Go ahead." After all, this girl, what is she going to do, don't know. So both were bound to 2 pillars. Now the girl starts screaming in a loud voice, "Oh king, please release me, please free me, please free me." The king said, "How can I? I'm bound. How can I free you?" There you got your answer. You are asking my father to free you. He himself is in bondage. He is teaching you just for the remuneration, for the payment. He is in bondage. How can he free you? Only a free person can free you. Mukta sanyan vimojet. May the free make others free. One person is free, he or she can give freedom to others, not those who are in bondage. Thank you.
Thanks for attending, everybody, and everyone who's watching on YouTube or who will be watching later on. We will conclude with listening to a guided meditation by Pravrajika Gayatriprana Mataji. Before that, just a couple of announcements. One, I trust when you've entered, all of you have completed the COVID-19 declaration. If you haven't, then please just fix it up later. And I can see all of you here are members, so of course, please stay back for lunch. And we have our AGM coming up this afternoon. And coming up this week on Thursday morning, we have the weekly yoga class from 10 a.m. to 11:15 a.m. You're always welcome to attend that. Friday night, we have the fortnightly discussion, spiritual evening discussion led by Pravrajika, Gayatriprana. And on Sunday, next Sunday, we have the monthly talk on Raja Yoga and that's given by Pravrajika Gayatriprana. And then after that, there's discussion led by question and answer session led by Dr. Tilak Datta. We have donation plate there, donation box up the back, and now please sit up straight and close your eyes, and we'll listen to a guided meditation by Mataji.
A rope through ignorance appears to be a snake. Even so, through ignorance of the self is the individualized selfhood of the Atman. When told by a person in whom one has faith, the illusion disappears and one sees the rope. Even so, I realize through the words of the Guru that I am not the individualized soul, but Shiva himself am I. I am not born. How can there be birth and death to me? I am not the white layers. How can I have hunger and thirst? I am not the mind. Whence can there be misery and delusion to me? I am not the doer. Whence can there be bondage and freedom to me? Shankaracharya. Life is a journey into unknown lands. We are like travelers in a strange country. This world can never be our real home. We have come on a pleasure trip to this earth for a short while from our permanent abode of peace, security, and joy, just for a holiday. This journey started long, long ago, and we have still to go a long, long way to reach back home. The trials and tribulations, joys and pleasures, meetings and separations are all part of the program of the trip. No one can escape that. But one who knows at the bottom of the heart that all one's experiences on this earth are but part of the scenario associated with the journey, that one is participating in it only as a spectator, as a traveler, to make God's show lovelier and more interesting. Such a person can enjoy the journey of life to its fullest extent. Let us find out the real essence within us, which is the real participant in this big drama. Closing the eyes, let us imagine that we are going deep, deep into our within. Just imagine that you are diving deep into the abyss of the heart. It is all darkness. Swim on, swim, don't stop. There's a long way to go. Deep into the inside of the heart. Let us swim on, glide on effortlessly. There is no obstacle. to block our path. Though it is dark, the swimming is enjoyable. As we go on and on into the interior of our heart, in the far off distance, you see a glimmer of light, like a tiny little distant star. That is our aim. Keeping that tiny spot of light in our view, let us dive towards that. As we slowly progress, a tiny spot of brilliance becomes larger and brighter very slowly. And then we find a large chamber full of effulgence and splendor in front of us. Look, and we can see. We stop. No more swimming. No more to go forward. No more darkness. No more hesitation. No more groping. It's all light. It's all brightness. We are in a chamber full of effulgence and splendor and glory. We are surrounded by a beautiful luster. Feel it all around us. Large chamber. In the center of the chamber is the throne of God. Seated on a high throne of golden hue, He, the Lord of the universe, has been waiting for us to come. Any form of the Lord, we can visualize the one that we like the most. If it is difficult to visualize any form, just think of a bright ball of heavenly radiance, poised beautifully on a wonderfully beautiful throne, just poised there. The omnipresent Lord's presence in our heart has been made visible because of the arduous journey that we have been doing and the hankering and yearning in our heart to feel His presence. We are surrounded by that brilliance, and we are standing in the front of a glorious throne, in the center of which is poised in perfect beauty a ball of radiance, not of this world. It's a heavenly radiance. Look at the beatific vision. A fully lighted chamber of the heart. In the center, the throne of golden color. And He, the master of all souls, waiting there for us. Waiting there for us. We are in the great presence. Feel the joy rising in the heart. Feel the coolness around us. Feel the sense of security filling the whole system. We are safe. There is only peace, peace and peace in our heart. The glorious effulgence all around us, and the wonderful presence just in front of us. Peace, only peace. Hari Om. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Om. Peace, peace, peace.